Welcome everybody. My name is Markus Vähälä and I want to welcome all of you to No Labels, No Walls 2022 festival. Together with me is Michael Bierman from the Strindberg Laboratory from Los Angeles. Hi Michael.
Hey, we're so happy to have you watching the 4th annual festival. The festival's theme is all about transformation. We're looking to find out how people are transforming the communities around them, themselves, and how that transformation leads to future action. So we're so happy to have everybody here today, and I'll give it back to Marcus.
Thank you, Michael. Together with us are special people, Kirk Hinkleman and Louis Blackwell. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Kirk Hinkleman is Director of Creative Design and Wellness at Life Work Supported Living, co-author of Intentional Teaming, Shifting Organizational, and co-creator of the Liberty Plan, a person-centered planning process. Kirk is committed to realizing the highest potential in people. Kirk says, the first step is awareness. What do I see? What do I sense? What do I feel? From awareness comes our ability to see what is happening and make a choice. For myself and LifeWorks as an organization, the choice is simple and important. What we see is a system designed to serve itself, perpetuating isolation and segregation. We choose not to become segregation and isolation. We choose not to replicate services precluding people from living lives of distinction and purpose. We choose to lead from an emerging future of possibility while tapping into our inner source of knowing, following our hearts and manifesting that which we seek in the world. And Louis Blackwell, welcome. Louis has worked with possibilities since 1995 and oversee a shared living department and done so for about 15 years. She has seen the department grow and morph over time from just herself to now working with a great team of 5 coordinators. Louis says that I believe we face similar challenges as other parts of the world do and often have to take a step back, breathe and remember why we are here and do the work we love to do. The story and video that we're about to see reminds Louise very clearly about this. We are faced with pressures of recruitment, retention, funding, and ever-increasing oversight from funders who remind us of compliance with standards, vacancies, and a lack of creativity to support people with complex support needs. When the fit and match is right, it is amazing to watch what happens and how everyone learns, grows, and experiences the world. So, further ado, I want to welcome you to the festival. It's so great to have you here with us, Kirk and Louise. What is shared living? What about
Louise,
you, Louise?
Yeah.
How do you see it?
I mean, it's a residential option that our funder offers to people, and I believe that the funder feels that it's a model that can support all people, and it's primarily adults with developmental disabilities here in the province of British Columbia. A lot of people we support have some complex needs. Some are quite independent, and it's where people share space and time in their lives together. We're quite intentional about the use of shared living because it is about sharing lives together. A number of years ago, we used to be called host family services, but then that got more confused with like host families with international students. And so we would get a lot of phone calls about that. So, and I like the use of the word shared living because it is about sharing lives together, learning, growing. Yep, there's bumps and hiccups along the way. That's the reality of life. We make mistakes, we learn, we grow, we figure out how we can do things differently. And it's no different for you and I than it is for people that live with a disability.
Thank you, Luis. And now to San Diego. Kirk, how do you see shared living?
Well, I see it the same way Luis sees it. There's just some differences in the fact that I'm from San Diego, California. So the service system and funding is just slightly different in the way they identify and label things. So here, LifeWorks is an organization that provides predominantly supported living services. Supported living, shared living could be interchangeable. I think there's some nuance to each. But at the end of the day, that's what we do. We're all about the match, as Luis said. I'm in the process right now of finding matches for several people, and you can have matches that you think are really great, and when people share space and time together, it becomes apparent that it's not. And you can have kind of questions moving in, but if you allow space and time for people to connect and listen slowly enough, you might actually see that it's going to work out quite well. And I think, again, just like Louise said, that this isn't a disability thing. This people sharing a life together comes with compromise, comes with honoring each other as individuals and honoring the reciprocal learning that can happen in a relationship. So that's what we do. I won't bore you with all the funding codes and all that stuff. Just to say that we try to keep that off of the people. We deal with all that stuff, and the real work and the real life is happening in people's homes.
Thank you, Kirk. We all participated in the wonderful New York Alliance event. The home is the heart of shared living. And we built the No Labels, No Walls together with this event to celebrate diversity and transformations in life, and to bring people together. And to link these two events together, No Labels, No Walls community participated the event with a wonderful getting to know you game from Michael, and we asked people to send videos about shared living to No Labels, No Walls Festival. So we have one sent to us from Nicole LeBlanc. So let's listen what she has to say.
Hello everyone, my name is Nicola Blank. I live in Silver Spring, Maryland. I'm on the autism spectrum. I've worked in the disability field since October 2007. I'm a policy wonk. I'm known as the budget watchdog and guardian of inclusion. I'm originally from Vermont. My own destiny or someone else will. One of my key areas that I focus on is dignity of risk, person-centered planning and practices. I currently serve as the PAL Group Coordinator for the National Center Advancing Person-Centered Practices. I'm also the Self-Advocate Engagement Advisor for TASH. Most recently, I did a keynote for the state of Wyoming on dignity of risk and control your own destiny. And see, I'm the winner of the David Joyce Advocate of the Year Award and the Steve Bartlett Award from Respectability. Back several years ago, back when I first got into the disability field, back in 2007, shortly after exiting Job Corps, which wasn't a very pleasant experience, when I first got into developmental services, I ended up moving into shared living with a home provider who, while this home provider helped me, get connected to the self-advocacy movement and ultimately, get my career in the disability field. On the other hand, some of the not so good things about shared living are that, if personality doesn't match, it can cause problems. Like I had during it, one situation I didn't feel like, it didn't feel like true community. I had a home provider who would have intercoms and say, if you pull up intercom, $5 fine. This home provider was, at times bossy, controlling, power over. She'd often say, oh, you open your presents like a 2-year-old. She would always be, insisting, oh, your father needs to be at your ISA meetings all the time. That also during this time we had situations where there were multiple people living in this shared living arrangement where technically you're only supposed to be a home provider is supposed to be paid to have 2 shared living. While it can be a cheap model, there's also in situations where it doesn't work. You often sometimes have situations where the provider is doing it for the money, and there's no incentive for them to help support somebody to become more independent. Unlike the shared living provider who I lived with during my first 4 months when I was in the Succeed program at UVM, it was a young couple. They were, nice and focused on getting me ready for the next step. Just to transition into supported apartment during the Succeed program.
So shared living was kind of a jumping board for you.
Yes, it's a cheap model where you get paid $15,000 to have me come and live with you. It's cheaper than group homes and it's cheaper than supported apartment. However, it can also be a barrier to helping people with disabilities become more independent. Teaching life skills, especially for those who can live in an apartment with support. Control, the attitude of the provider, somebody who's hard-nosed and isn't always the most ideal match. And, oftentimes if the match doesn't work, the person has to move out. It doesn't always feel like a home of your own.
What do you think needs to change?
Living with another family.
What needs to change about shared living?
Well, I'd say training. We need to, specifically, get people. If people are going to do that model, they need to not be doing it for the money. They need to be, focusing on, helping people, progress. In terms of life skills, independent living skills, living on their own with support.
And how do you live now, Nicole?
Currently, I live in a studio apartment in Silver Spring, Maryland. I don't get any services, unfortunately, because of the way the eligibility is down here, unlike when I lived in Vermont, where you can get HCVS if you have autism and deficit and adaptive functioning. Down here, there's wait lists and there's more stringent criteria. And right now, as we speak in Vermont, with the pandemic and all that, many people are advocating for models other than shared living. In Vermont, shared living is the bed and breakfast, the prime model of service. Whereas down here in Maryland, you have group homes. There's not much choice. Like some states, I know that do supported apartment, that's not really what you see a lot of in Vermont.
What advice would you have for
parents lobby to be paid? And then Vermont, is a state that it's the second oldest state in the nation to the average age of the population, and they're having difficulty now, finding providers, staff, the workforce crisis.
What advice would you have to someone who was looking to move into a shared living situation?
Well, don't rush the decision. Look at don't just look at one person, look at a bunch of, people, individual possible providers. Don't just make a snap decision. just because you want out of your parents' house or what have you. It's important to find a model and a personality match that's going to be compatible. That isn't going to make you stress eat and whatnot, and be traumatizing.
Welcome back.
Really interesting. I mean, really interesting.
Yeah, I think that what's kind of resonated with me over the last 2 days, it doesn't matter where in the world we're talking about shared living and supported living. Besides the values, there's some commonalities, like Nicole shared, like don't rush into this. Don't take the first person that comes to you. And as much as possible, we try and offer people choice. Some people are very, very specific about what they want. And, also where we are in the Lower Mainland, we're very fortunate that transit is not often a huge issue. Where you get to more remote communities in the province, you might be an hour away from one of the smaller towns or cities and things like that. But so choice is important. And then the other piece, which we deal with, and I'm sure you guys deal with as well, is what's people's motivation for wanting to do this. And when they start to ask, how much money will I get for that person? If money's the motivating factor, that's always a red flag in my piece. I mean, I certainly understand people have bills to pay, nothing's getting cheaper. But for me, if it's one of the first questions, it's a bit of I'm put off by that person usually. It's, if that's your only motivating factor, then it's a bit concerning. So yeah, we, on opposite sides of the country and different countries, but some of the challenges are still the same.
Sounds like that.
I was just going to add that I find her, she brought up the fact that it doesn't oftentimes can feel like it isn't your home. And here in California, there's written into state regulations, there's principles of supported living. And one of them is a home of one's own. And as an organization, we honor this idea of control of one's threshold to their home. So oppositely of what Louise is talking about is, and what Nicola is talking about, I think that we've gotten a little too hardcore about people who are providing the supports, who are living with someone with a developmental disability, were very militantly said, this is not your home. And so that's why when I say there's nuance, I feel like supported living needs to come over a little bit more to the energy of a shared living situation. And in the video that you're going to see from Nick and Marshall, this is evident. But that's why the match is so huge, so that both people feel like it's their home. There's some commonality that's there. And it's messy and it's not easy. And I really appreciated that about Nicola's video, is that this is not a typical thing. And it is very difficult. And here, I don't know, it's lovely to have lots of options. Here, there's not a lot of people. It's the most difficult position that our organization has to fill, because it's weird. We're asking you to live with this person. That's not a normal job. So I think getting away from treating it as such and treating it as more of this, you're getting it here, right? So I'm with you, Louise, on the money thing. It's finding the people who have it here that are going to be, effective and open to the idea of sharing a life and having this reciprocal learning going on. Anyway,
I had a question. So obviously, the whole idea of cohabiting with somebody is something new, right? Because this is you're talking about, this is your own. So much of transformation starts with retraining, right? In a sense that, as far as what property means, as far as what a home means, like all of those things are you're kind of trying to redefine it. It sounds like, at least the brief. So what kind of education do you think would be helpful, like retraining? So it would be a simpler ask, because, obviously sharing a space with somebody, whether they have an intellectual or a disability, hopefully, I mean, that's hopefully what we're trying to do, right? Is cohabitate the world, equally. And one of the things when you're doing transformative things, which is kind of what I'm feeling you guys are trying to do, it does take a lot of training. So is there more that can be done, like programs, I guess, education in the school system? Is there more kind of events that can be done in the community? What kind of things to kind of make it easier for the ask to happen, besides just the individual aspect, like you've been mentioning?
Yeah, often what we look for is people, our applicants to shared living, have some kind of experience or education in the field, but not necessarily so. Sometimes people apply, and I love to be proven wrong, because it just kind of makes me kind of sit and ponder and think about things. We had a quick example. We had a lady apply, her and her husband, and daughter's about 10. Not a lot of experience. She was a stay-at-home mom, and we were looking for a home share for a lady that was moving from Vancouver Island back to the Lower Mainland. I introduced her, and I didn't think that the family would pick this because she doesn't have the experience, the knowledge, the understanding. And then right away, they're like, no, she wants to live with this lady. And I love to be so surprised like that, because sometimes, what you talked about, Kurt, it's got to come from, in here, right? And it doesn't matter sometimes it doesn't matter how many certificates, and I've done this training, I've done that training. Sometimes it's more intrinsic than that, right? It's not about that. Certainly there has to be some training. I do agree with you, especially around perhaps some more mental health pieces that people struggle with, and diagnosis, looking at changes, and perhaps substance use. That's a big challenge that we deal with. But I think sometimes it's trying to find a bit of a balance and a blend between the two, because sometimes you can be trained, and if you don't have it internally, if it's not intrinsic, it's not in your heart, that doesn't come out. It's not genuine in the support that you provide. That's what I feel.
Yeah, and on top of that, I think because of the centuries of belief of what is possible for people with disabilities, at this point, like DNA level embedding of what we think and how we treat people and what we expect of people with disabilities, whether we're conscious to it or not, exists. So oftentimes, I'm with you, Louise. I actually quite enjoy people who come to us with zero experience in the field, because there's nothing to break down. There's no labels or walls to break down or strip. People don't know anything. People respond to an ad for this who have no experience because they might just get it here. They're like, I'm looking for some sort of shift in my life. And sometimes when people come with 30 years of experience in the field, but in isolated, segregated contexts, there's a lot of unpacking and breaking down that needs to happen there. So, and like, just like, this downloading level of listening that people have, like, I'm just going to wait for my turn to speak because I already have the opinions and judgments that I believe in ready to go. And I'm both guns are holstered and ready to fire at will once you're done speaking, and I'll hit you with what I believe. So as far as training, to your original question, Michael, I think that this type of thing, what you're doing by sharing stories, might actually be a really brilliant way to effectively show someone who's interested in this what it's about. Like, I think it's super impactful, and it's super outside the norm of standardized training or certification for different things, right? Like, if we're after something that's outside the norm, if we're after something that's truly transformative, then the way in which we do it has to be transformative as well. So I think if we think outside the box about that kind of thing, that might be something
And what, like, I know this is your profession, but you know, this whole theme of the festival is about transformation. So what kind of things, I mean, how, obviously this is kind of seems like a progressive journey for you as far as what works and what doesn't. So what kind of things inside that affect change your set, like, you know, in your actions by doing this work? And then I guess the next question of the festival is, like you're mentioning, maybe do videos, etc. But what new ideas based on the actions you've taken in the past that you want to incorporate into new actions for the future?
Well, I think if I'm understanding the first part of the question, what do I personally do for like
Well,
personal
what,
transformation?
like when we do actions in the community, or Marcus does actions in the community, obviously we learn something, and hopefully the it's not just doing it for them, we're also doing it for ourselves, right? Because we're sort of searching for something. So I guess my question to both of you is, what have you gained from doing this, by you know, pairing people together, and then what have you learned, what have you gained, like, for yourselves, and then what kind of, the next part is, how is that affected, or how are you planning to incorporate that into your future work?
So through trial and error I've been doing this specific part in the field for 15 years, the supported living thing. Through trial and error, I think what I've gained is insight into what works, and seeing multiple failed matches, and unfortunately far fewer successful ones, and that's starting to get, so using that data to then influence what we do moving forward. And I've gained an appreciation for slowing down, for finding stillness, for going slower with everything. And in our field, in the service system, everything is fast, report, meeting. There's like this 60-minute cap on meetings, and when somebody says, "Ooh, you're going to spend 3 hours doing a discovery process or a person-centered plan with somebody," and people freak out, I like to say, look, if you put that 3-hour meeting next to a 1-hour meeting, yeah, that seems like a long time. If you put that 3-hour meeting next to the span of someone's life, it's a blip.
Yeah.
And so we start to shift the way we think about time and our prioritization of time in that way. So I think that maybe that's a bridge to the follow-up question, which is like, moving forward, how am I applying it? It's being okay with going slow, and being okay with telling funders who are asking for things on deadlines, I'm doing right by this person, and you're going to have to wait because we're not there yet. And you know, if I ruffle some feathers, I ruffle some feathers. It's that's all right.
What about for you, Lo?
Similar to Kirk, I think just and I'm probably going to answer the questions in reverse. Just kind of slowing down and being, because we were, you know, when I first started, about 20 some odd people. Now we're up to 120. Get a lot of pressure from government, from funders to, can you find this person, and then it gets crazy, like right after New Year, because it's close to the end of the fiscal. They might have a little bit of money. Can you get like 6 people in shared living? And so we're very strategic in our growth and who we think we can support, because we do a lot of work ahead of time, because we want that match to be really successful. The transition, like, this is really good, because it's a lot of work to move someone and to go through that again. So I think just kind of like just slowing down and just kind of looking at everything. And the other piece for me is about, when was it? It was in March of 2019. I was approached by another agency to become a home share provider myself, for a lady that I'd known for many, many years, because our agency used to support her when she was like a child and a youth and young adult. And I thought, oh yeah, I can do this, like, no problem, right? It totally different experience, you know, being a manager, but then also providing home share in my home. And her support needs were very different. They were more kind of emotional, and I use the word kind of counseling very, very loosely, because I'm not a counselor. But she was quite independent in terms of doing laundry, planning her day, getting breakfast, taking her meds, all of that kind of stuff. But it was the emotional support that she required and stuff. So just the ability for me to see the job that I do now and being in other people's lives, also from the home share provider point of view. Because a lot of our home share providers say it's not about the money. And her contract was quite well funded in the overall scheme of things. And I can honestly say it's not about the money. Like, you could pay me double, triple, and it often wouldn't change things. She ended up having an accident, was hit by a SkyTrain. There was a lot that went on.
God.
And so she wasn't able to do stairs after. So she moved on, but we still talk a couple times a week and things like that, and meet for coffee and stuff. But I think, internally for me, just being able to kind of stand beside some of our home share providers in that role and seeing what they go through has really helped me in the role that I have now, being a manager and working through all of that. So that's really helped me.
Great.
Thank you, Louise, for sharing that with us. And Kirk, you also have a video to show today. Can you tell a little bit about the video?
Yes, happily. So the two gentlemen you're going to see about are a guy named Nick and a guy named Marshall. I've known Nick for about 12 years and have helped coordinate, I don't know, in his life, 4 different shared living arrangements. This one being like the nirvana of all of them. So Nick and I, just personally speaking, between Nick and I, like, he is just like, we are so similar in so many ways. We're similar in age. We are similar in like value structure, and we're both sort of down to talk philosophically for hours with no resolution. Artists, writers, like, there's just so much we connect about. So I think that we're definitely heart connected. So, when the failed matches came, it really kind of ate at my spirit and soul. I felt really bad because I care about Nick so much. So when Marshall came into the picture, initially as just a supporter on the periphery, and when it was, I started to notice, like, he had the similar kind of interests, and he's a generation above Nick and I. But he holds similar faith values as Nick, and has like just a calming presence about him, and it's just sort of like a wide open person. So when Nick's previous shared living arrangement was coming to an end, it was without hesitation that I approached Marshall about living with Nick. So I think maybe that's enough of an intro to the video, and we can show a little bit about their story.
Thank you, Kirk. Let's watch the video.
I have someone that I'm living with, and I like him, and I am trying to be more easy with this person. His name is Monso, and I know him from the life before I meet him, and I like him.
I'm Marshall, and I live with Nicholas, right over here.
Sometimes I try to find activities in my life, and also sometimes when I need someone to working as a team, it's easy for me to be more structured and not being serious. But I like this guy right here. His name is Monster. and he's very good, open human being.
I would think the very first one is to have a mutual respect for each other. That's the biggest thing. Not only with our shared space, but also with each other as a person, and discuss this. Like any other roommate situation, of course, we have ups and downs, but we usually at the end of the day talk about it and come up with solution. Nick is a very solution-oriented person, so if there's going to be anything that comes up, we try to find solutions right away and move forward. Because it's only Nick and I who live together, so we only have such a small space, and we always try to make it work.
We are trying to talk open space with him before we go to bed, because I don't want for me to like waking up at night and for me to express what's going on inside of me. And sometimes me and that person I'm living with, also because he is very, very, very sensitive, but I trying to understand how he is at with me and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because usually at the beginning of the day, when we go over our activities, there will always be compromises because day by day things change. That's what life is all about. You have to be flexible, and that's what I love about Nick now is because he's more flexible in regards with the activities, and he does understand life happens. So we compromise. That's a lot of compromise. And throughout the day, we still compromise, and even at night before we go to bed, at compromise. Even if we have already this compromises at the end of the day, in the morning we still have to wake up. When we wake up, we still talk about it, and I think it's a big compromising. I believe because Nick has his own ideas, I have my own ideas. Meeting in the center, and when we have a direct support professional comes in the morning, Alex, we all talk about it. We all compromise and see what we come up with. Which is
10 years old with a rose and a Valentine. I thought that love was bought and sold with candy.
When I first met Nick 4 years ago, the first thing I told him was,
Nick has a very spiritual soul, and he does
don't make me cry. Yeah. So that's the first thing, and I touched him. I said, you have a pure soul and heart, and life was never the same again for both of us. And when I transitioned to be his full-time roommate a year later, it wasn't even a question. It just came in naturally for both of us. And we share a very deep spiritual connection. Nick is a very spiritual person because at the end of the day, he gives the most enlightening wisdom to me. And that's something that I will take with me for the rest of my life. And Nick always does these little things. Like Nick said, I'm very sensitive, but little things that he does that for other people may not be anything, but to me it means something. Whether he makes a little art for me, or he writes a little note, or he just even gives me a piece of stone. That means a lot for me because it's a part of him, and he acknowledges that I am a part of him, and I acknowledge that he is a part of me. And we are. It came to a point that Nick is not only as a roommate, we always call ourselves usos or brothers.
But you need to also to know about your own honesty. If you don't be honest if you don't be honest with it, if you don't be honest with yourself, then how your loved ones or the team that you're working with, like for me, it's easy to work it out. Like example, like I have a mom before, and she died, and she wants me to find someone like most of my roommate, and we're trying to taking time to get to know each other.
What a wonderful video. Thank you, Kirk.
Yeah. You're welcome. I mean, that was easy to do. Just put the camera on the two of them and let them have a conversation. It was, you know, I was fist pumping when they were answering. I'm like, yes. But yeah, I don't know how if you want me to say a little more or have other people say something. I don't know what you want to do here, Marcus.
How do you saw it, Luis, when you saw it first time?
Yeah, like I've watched it a couple of times, but I think the big piece for me that I think about over and over again is I think what Marshall said initially was having mutual respect for one another, both, you know, the physical space that they share together and then for one another, you know, and, you know, when they talk about compromise, and yeah, they probably have their, you know, their disagreements over things, and that's life, and, you know, but just wanting to work through it. And, you know, I feel like, yeah, they could counsel many other people, married couples, around, you know, go have compromise and deal with this before we go to bed. And sometimes it's still there in the morning, and, you know, all of that. So I thought that was, yeah, that was very well said. But I like the mutual respect for one another and their, you know, the shared space that they have. So, yeah.
Thank you, Luis. How about you, Michael? What did you see in this?
It was so heartwarming. I mean, it was like seeing love, you know, on a screen. So, you know, just so interesting because it really connects to so many other types of work and other types of issues. You know, what you all are doing. You know, how do people connect with one another? You know, how do we listen to one another? There's just so many benefits and I think lessons, you know, that because the other thing, you know, we work with so many people that are, you know, who have intellectual disabilities, etc. But the other thing that can't be controlled is what happens after they leave the house, you know. So it's like, and you know, and that has a lot to do with the things that you're saying, you know, listening and connecting. So yeah, all these lessons can be really applied to, you know, other aspects of society. Definitely.
I'll just jump in. I think, Michael, that Nick may have answered your last question to Louise and I near the end of the video when he talked about if you're not honest with yourself, right? So like the what are you doing personally that moving forward? So like I think what Nick's taking ownership over not being honest with himself, because before Marshall there was some actually quite volatile shared living situations that happened. And Nick in his own way communicated that he was unhappy, and it took us a while to figure out what was going on with him. What is he trying to say to us? And I think that he has had space to heal with Marshall. I think he's had space to reflect on his own contribution to the arrangement. I think that he didn't before really see himself as like an equal contributor to the situation. I think that he felt Like, these people come and go from my life because that's what they're supposed to do. That's what they're paid to do, whatever it might be. And over time and over many conversations and Marshall's energy coming in, I think really brought it all together of this idea that this is about us.
Yeah.
And that the comment that Marshall makes about Usos and brothers also reminds me of that Ubuntu value of, I am because we are, right? And so that's what he says. That's my favorite part of the video, is when he says that he acknowledges that I'm a part of him and I acknowledge that he a part of me. I mean, that's what we're after, right? So for me, that's like it. So now there's been a bar set here in San Diego.
And it's so interesting you touch up about purpose. Because, any relationship, there has to be a purpose. You have to be ready to accept, that kind of, positivity too, or that kind of connection. So, it's so fascinating because, because No Labels, No Walls, a lot about culture and art, and always on culture and art, it's always about purpose, like the big why. And a lot of times, especially like you guys were mentioning before, when things are so stigmatized and no one's asked you, what do you want? Because you can't really get it, so you don't really know. Getting to that why is so important, because that's kind of then the beginning of opening up to accept what can come. And I just think it's just so fascinating, Marcus. I'm sure you have something to say too right now, but that everything's all connected. Like what you're doing, what we're doing, what Marcus is doing. It's like, even though we're working with different populations and different, it's all like we're kind of facing the same problems in a way, the same struggle. So anyways, Marcus.
Thank you, Michael. Luis, you also have a video to show. Can you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. This is video about Maggie, and met her probably about 17, 18 years ago, and she wanted to become a home share provider. And when I first met her, she'd just had a baby, and I wasn't sure she would have the time and the space and energy commitment to do that. And like I've said earlier, happily proved me wrong. And now their family has grown. They have 3 daughters. They've supported John this whole time. And then John knew someone from when he was in school, and they got together, and then Christine has moved in with them, and John and Christine are actually a couple now and live together. And all of the pieces to that, and the nuances and the ups and downs of a home share provider, supported person relationship, as well as a couple relationship. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and it gives you a little snapshot of what their life is like together.
Thank you, Luis.
Hi, my name is Maggie,
John,
Christine, and we all live together. I'm
in home share.
In a home share program, yes. We live in the house upstairs, and John and Christine
live downstairs.
Yeah, they live independently downstairs. We have been doing or participating in this program for
16 years.
16 years, John. Gosh, doesn't it seem like yesterday we just sat at the table and had pizza for the first time?
Oh, yeah.
Where you were interviewing me? Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And who was on my lap? Who was I bouncing about?
That was
Baby
Ailey.
Baby Ailey. Baby Ailey, yes. And she's almost 16, so for sure.
No, almost 17.
Oh my goodness, did I lose a year?
Yes.
And Christine's been part of the party mix since when?
That's been 5 years.
5 years, goodness gracious. And we generally feel like we're family, right? So John and Christine are people with
disabilities.
Yeah. I've never known you so quiet, Christine. She's always chit-chatting, but I think she's camera shy. So we're like family. We live together independently. I would say I'm like a nosy aunt who kind of has a sense of what's going on in John and Christine's world. They certainly have been on a roller coaster ride with us. They've seen our babies be born. They've watched our house transform from one version to another, and they just put up with it and go with the flow like the way an actual family does. It's really fun having Christine and John here. It's nice to kind of see them grow and develop. Christine is a full-time student. However, when we first met her, that wasn't the case, right?
No.
You have found your way and your footings around. And John, he just manages us all, I would say.
Yep.
What do you guys get out of being in a home share program? Christine, do you want to go first?
I get out of it with getting support for doctor's appointments and being around Maggie if I need somebody to talk to. And they help me get into schooling. And I love going to school. I love getting education.
John, what do you get out of it?
What I get out of it is basically Maggie to support me in places that is needed. For example, if I need the extra help with laundry, she'll turn around, be a nosy mother and state that, is your laundry done? Are you taking your laundry down?
Is your recycling out? Or vice versa, John will call us and say, Maggie, tomorrow's Wednesday and you need to take out the blue bin and the green bin, or whatever the case is. So yeah, we both are on each other's, we're teamwork. We both definitely help each other stay accountable. Would you recommend, if a person with disabilities was wondering if this was a good program for them, what would you have to say about that?
I would say go for it. It's a good place to live. And you got good supports. I never had a support system like I do now.
It's a good support system for Christine because in the past, the support system that she had was very weak,
unpredictable, yeah,
and very unstable. Since she came into possibilities, it became a lot stronger, a lot healthier, where she can actually turn around and have the ability to be herself.
Mm-hmm. And what do you get out of it?
What I get out of it?
Yeah, let's. Like if you, so not what you get out of it, but like if there was a person similar to you, like an independent person, because you can do buses, you can do shopping, we do money together, you organize, little things, you're volunteering, you're a busy guy, but yet you still have home support. So if there was a person like you, very independent, would you encourage them to home share?
Oh, I agree. It actually helps them to keep their abilities in line and keep them from falling apart. There is always someone there to support disabled people. They may not know it, but they might be scared of it. Don't be scared. It's always good to have someone just like Maggie to support. And the other thing I will say, I enjoy in this home share in the last 16 and a half years. I enjoyed watching her kids grow up.
And be part of your family.
Also, I turn around and say to her kids, are you having a good time? Are you enjoying yourself? As I walk out the door so I can have my day to myself. That's what I normally do.
Because we're all one big happy family.
Yep.
Working through the good days, working through the bad days, but just committed to supporting each other. Thanks for listening.
And have a wonderful day.
Have a good day. Bye.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Louise.
Oh, you're welcome. That was fun. And we just asked Maggie if she'd like to do it. And does anybody need to be there? She's like, no, I got this. And as you can see, she got it. Yeah.
What do you think about it, Kirk?
Well, first of all, two things about John. That's an epic sweatshirt he's wearing. And two, he could be like on the radio, like voiceover, like read me a story. It's like a super soothing tone to his voice. I thought it was great. I mean, I find it to be interesting when he talks about, first of all, he answers questions to himself as talking about others. So part of me wonders if he doesn't identify as somebody with a disability as much, or doesn't see that as much, or sees like, I'm so evolved here that, yeah, I'm going to be a teacher here. I'm going to say what value this could be for other folks. But him talking about, I forget the woman's name in the video.
Christine or Maggie?
Christine, yes. When he's talking about how she didn't have it so good, and now that she does, and she even mentioned, I've never had support like this. And it probably looks and feels less like any sort of program or services than she's ever had, yet it's the best support she's had. So I think, isn't that like what we're after? Like that it's more organic, that it's more real life. And the more organic and real life you can get, the more supported you actually feel. The less services, the less programming, all of that stuff, right? So that landed very, very deeply for me, that those comments, that was just very clear. And, you know, obviously Maggie's got fantastic energy and seems like a really great situation.
Yeah, I don't know where she gets the energy from. She's got 3 busy girls, a husband. She got John and Christine, all of them sharing their lives. And she's also an emergency foster parent. So she could be up at like 3 a.m. and because, you know, I always stop by and have tea with everyone, and, you know, different kids, babies, and I don't know how she does it. I truly don't, but she is just so calm and chill, and I'm just, yeah, I'm jealous, to be honest. But, yeah, I mean, especially with Christine too. John, like I said earlier, John and Christine knew each other, I think, from high school here in the Lower Mainland, and then 4.5, 5 years ago, John took off for 2 days. We didn't know where he had gone. I get a call. He's in Kamloops, which is about 5 hours away from here. And Christine was in a shelter and worked with services up there to get them both back here. And Maggie took Christine in, like, yeah, she's like, no problem. We'll sort this out. I'm sure there's something available for her. And like, no questions asked. And it was a complete stranger that came into her house. And Christine tells us, yeah, like this is the longest she's been in one place in all her life, and I think she's 36. So it's very telling, gives me inspiration that we do good stuff despite, you know, government standards, accreditation, all that other stuff. But, you know, good things happen to good people. So
thank you, Louise. How about you, Michael? What did you see in this video?
I mean, I just think I learned a lot today. I just want to thank Kirk and Louise for coming and sharing, because, I mean, your work is so valuable for so many different, you know, lessons for everybody. And it's so great to see people actually getting along with one another, you know, and connecting. So it gives me a lot of hope, and just, you know, hopefully we can continue to see what your work comes in the future. And then, yeah, and also how, like Kirk, like you're mentioning the videos, I do think they're so powerful. Hopefully you can use these videos for your work in the future as well.
I think like people telling their stories or just their experience, and even if it's a snapshot, I think it's so powerful. Like, could probably take 100 videos of all the people that we support, and every story is gonna have some common threads but be a little bit different. And yeah, I just think storytelling has such power, and it reaches across so many people. So I'd love to do more with it.
Mm.
Thank you, Louise, and thank you, Kirk. And thank you, New York Alliance, Chris Liuzzo, Kate Connolly, and everybody who made these 2 wonderful days together possible with Home is the Heart of Shared Living that brought us together. And with these stories, I think we can transform hearts everywhere and open homes for new kind of shared living. Thank you so much, and also thanks for joining No Labels, No Walls Festival 2022. Hopefully we'll see 23 too.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.